quadratic equations at a little more difficult level. I kind of put this at a level 2. Again, we're just kind of starting to ease into quadratics a little bit for you. Again, a strategy is to set equal to 0. That's very important when you're dealing with quadratic equations. There's more meaning to it if you set it equal to 0. So notice how we have quadratic term, linear term, and constant. That's how you typically want to have it. You want that square term, the linear term, and constant. Right now, I've got this left side, 15a squared minus 3a, and then I got this right side, which is 3 minus 7a. It's not set equal to 0. Again, we like to just kind of move things over to this side. So I want to zero out the 7a to start with, so I need to have a 7a over here, which means I got to add a 7a over on this side. So this is going to give me 15a squared plus then 4a, and all we have over here left is a 3. We still need to make this 3 disappear, so we can zero him out by using its 0 pair. So I put a negative 3 here, and he's not really a like term with him, so I'm just sliding over here to this edge. He's more of my constant. So I have this 15a squared comes down, my 4a comes down, this negative 3 slides in, and then this just turns to 0. So now we have something that looks like this. It's set equal to 0. But notice how this is a harder problem to factor because I have a coefficient in front of this a squared. So we want to factor something like this. Again, we like to use, as a strategy, the x factor. Again, all of this is an organizational piece. Just helps you kind of piece things together. So we multiply the 15 times the negative 3 to start with. That's our first move. That gives me a negative 45. The 4 slides down into this spot. This now creates our mama strategy. So we have our multiplying and adding pieces. So negative 45 is my multiplication piece, and the 4 is my addition piece. So what I'm looking for are factors of negative 45. And again, I'm going to ignore the negatives to start with. You just try to find the factors of 45. Again, we start with 1 and 45. 1 times 45 is 45. 2 will not go into 45 evenly, so he's out. 3 does go into 45. 3 times 15 plus 45. 4 doesn't work. 4 doesn't go into 45. And keep in mind, since 2 doesn't work, no even number is really going to even work here. That's a kind of little checkoff. So 3, 4 didn't work. 5 does. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 doesn't go into it. 7 doesn't. 8 doesn't. 9 does. That tells me I can stop looking for factors. Now I got up to 4. But also notice I have to have a negative 45 here. So to get a negative, when you multiply, one of these numbers has to be negative. But also when you add, you have to get a positive 4. So what that's telling me is the bigger number's got to be positive. So this side here has to turn to my negatives. So we have a negative 1 times 45, a negative 3 times 15, a negative 5 times 9. Those all would give me a negative 45. But which one of these pairs is going to add up to a 4? Looks like that negative 9 and negative 5 and 9 is going to work. So negative 5 and a 9 does indeed give me my 4. So this completes my x factor strategy. This negative 5 will go over here, and this 9 goes over here. My last move is to slide the 15 underneath each piece. And we have to reduce these fractions. So that actually looks like that's going to reduce to a negative 1/3. I can divide each one of these by 5. That's going to give me a negative 1/3. Looks like I take a 3 out of each one of these, and I get, looks like a 3/5. And keep in mind, if you have a calculator, you could reduce those with a calculator if you like. These little fractions, though, are actually my signals of how to factor it. So I'm going to set up my 2 sets of parentheses. The letter I'm using is actually an A this time. So remember, we go from bottom to top. So it's going to be a 3a minus 1 And over here we're going to have 5a plus 3. Remember, you go from bottom to top. And that's by factorization. So all this down through here now gets to this. And don't forget, this is still equal to 0. Our next strategy is what makes these zeros? And I'm really not real clear on those. So our strategy is set each one of these factors equal to 0. So again, setting equal to 0 is a very powerful tool. So if you don't know these answers, set these equal to 0, and that will get us to the next step. So 3a minus 1 equals 0, and 5a plus 3 is equal to 0. Now these are just basically linear equations. With linear, remember you just want to get the variable by itself. So we always pick on the 0 pair part first. Pick on the number, add a 1 to both sides. This gives me 3a is equal to 1, because those zeroed out. And remember, we can use division here to get this out of the way. So divide each side by 3. These 3's will divide out, and your a will just equal this 1/3. So that's your solution there. And then, what makes this 0? Again, we can zero out the 3. We get 5a is equal to a -3. And then to get a by itself, we can just divide both sides by 5. That's a common strategy that we use in math. So again, what do you do one side, do the other? These 5's divide out, my a is by itself. -3/5, really, I guess we could change that to a decimal, but most of the time you'll see these answers just left as fractions. So our solutions are actually fractions again. So we end up with 1/3 and this -3/5. So that would be the solutions. So we seem to come across more fractional things. Chapter 3, we'll talk a little bit about fractions and decimals and probably tie that into percents a little bit. So stay tuned for the next chapter.